Have you ever thought to yourself or talked to a friend about how your teaching assistants or TAs are just lazy? They A, probably don't know as much as you about the course you're in, or B, they don't catch blatant cheaters, or C, that they're just straight up handing in graded assignments very late. I personally myself, in many courses that I've taken, I've had assignments that were 4, 5, 6 weeks late on grading. So there'd be material I'd be writing a midterm for in which the assignments aren't graded, so I didn't even know what I didn't know. Does that sound fair? And I'd say to you, you're only half right. Because these teaching assistants themselves, or TAs, they're a victim themselves of the system that you're complaining about. I'll go down three major-ish reasons as to why teaching assistants or TAs are viewable as lazy, but they have some reason to be justified in being so. So, the first reason, and of course I'll sprinkle in my anecdotal experiences here as I list these points. So, the first point is that they themselves are, on average, in most cases, full-time students themselves. Now, this isn't excusable usually because a lot of students work jobs outside of the class, like, for example, convenience store workers, people who work at fast food. The list goes on. But these people aren't excused to be lackluster at work. I do acknowledge that. However, there is one added caveat of being a teaching assistant or TA, and that is they themselves are burdened with having a higher than average GPA, depending on where you go to school. That being that if they want to TA the course they're in to expand their pool of courses that they can TA in, therefore getting hired for the next semester, then they must be better than average. It depends on school, on how well they do in these courses. So not only are they full-time students, usually, they're also trying to be much above average, let's say 80 to 90% on average on all their courses that they're trying to do. On top of that, being a TA. Now this is the lightest reason. It's nothing crazy, but it is a factor to consider when you think about why these TAs are handing things in late or they're not catching cheaters. And now the biggest reason as to why I kind of give some TAs a pass for being slightly lazy in terms of their work is they themselves are victims of kind of a cruel system, and they've therefore become jaded because of it. So, first off, there's the professor decides what the course really is kind of system they have in the universities that I'm talking about, or at school in general. So basically, for courses that a prof teaches, one prof can teach it another way. For example, I go to Comp 1000, pretty standard course, get taught a bunch of rules and all that, and go on to TA it the following year or semester, whenever, or years beyond. And the prof is tackling it in a completely different way. And I can tell you anecdotally that this has happened a lot. So the biggest and most extreme example of this is when I took a it's too funny when I think about it. I took a class about computer architecture, and when I was chosen to TA that class the following semester, actually, I had to grade technical papers on how some tech was good for some processors. I have I I'm not kidding, and this still happens to this day. I was in no way equipped to handle a responsibility like that. I was taught about mostly MASM, honestly, in that course, but yeah, that's just how it is, and you feel like you're out of place there. Like, why am I even here if I'm not going to teach the things I was taught? So that's one sub reason. The next reason is slightly more annoying. It's that professors seem to usually lack the amount how much they should care. So, for example, profs usually either don't give grading schemes out to teaching assistants, and I've had this before, or B, their grading schemes leave so much up for interpretation that it's almost like it's a wild west of free grades out there. And you slightly get more jaded with this system here, because some TAs are much more lenient than others, and the students will take advantage of this. And the next point is students, and a lot of students get away with low quality, quite frankly, low quality assignments, or just straight up cheating on assignments. Especially in the COVID era, I'm keen to say that this has become widespread phenomena, that students either straight up cheat or just hand in low quality assignments, and they somehow get through some graders, and therefore you being a teaching assistant that's upholding their own like moral standard, it becomes difficult, because you might give someone, say, a 30% for an assignment, but they can easily go to another teaching assistant, or TA, I keep saying, and raise that 30% up to like a 70. And I've had this happen before, and it's just so infuriating. Like, you start to lose the reason why you started this. And that's why a lot of the comments I made and people posed to each other earlier about how TAs are lazy, it's kind of disingenuous, in that once they were naive, just students before too, but once you see the kind of stuff the system just lets happen, it just makes you stop caring about what goes on around you as a TA. Because just say, like, a student just straight up cheats, and university laws say that, like, they should just be like, they should have like an academic probation or something, depends on university. But no one's willing to enforce that, especially not the professors. And they'll just cut it clean with a 0, and you're just gonna have to continue marking that guy because he's just in your grade range of like last letters R to Z or something. And you have to deal with this guy's BS, and this guy will always be emailing you because you gave him a low mark, or you gave him a 0 because you cheated. And and if you just gave him slightly more than he should have, then he'll get off your back, and he'll never email you at all for any of this. Which is why it's pretty depressing being a TA for some of these people. And at the very last point, I have TAs, they have at least a fractious relationship with the profs that they have. I've never had a prof that I super got along with. There was only profs that I could tolerate. And I understand this is like the employee-employer kind of dynamic, but some profs, they just simply don't really care about the course they're teaching in, and as a byproduct, they really don't care about you. So it just becomes a point of whether your boss or prof is tolerable or not. And there's some that go the other way. They're a bit too into the course, as in like they're trying to add more things than there should be in the course, and they're super enthusiastic about the course, which is all great and all, but for TAs that just took that course and are trying to teach it back, it's really, really hard to teach something you don't know, especially if you don't have Google right available to you. And this goes out to all the people who have to hold office hours in person, which, honestly, office hours is something I could talk about for another, like, 10 minutes. But this video is getting kind of long, and I should probably wrap up. I can tell you from experience, in conclusion, that TAs, they're just human like the rest of us, right? It's really unfortunate that you had that assignment 4, 5, or 6 weeks late, and yes, your TA was probably lazy on grading those. But it wasn't because that they just don't like being there is the problem. They're very jaded with the system they have to deal with, and therefore they have no enthusiasm in their job. And of course they're being paid for this, but it's it's merely it's merely a reason to submit the work, basically, is what it becomes. Because honestly, in the current system I've been placed in, if I'm being 100% honest, being a lousy TA rewards you much more than being a good TA. And that's about it.